call to order the October 19th meeting of the Harbor Commission. Jeanette, would you like to call roll, please?
Yes, Jim Sloan.
Here.
Betsy Kramer. Here. Merritt McRae. Here. Lang Sly.
Here.
Shoham Yaniv.
Here.
Bill Spicer is absent tonight.
Okay. Any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, no changes this evening.
Okay. Let's see, public comment. Do we have any slips?
No, we do
Okay.
not.
We'll move ahead. We need to approve the minutes. Someone like to make a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let's see here. Okay. Moving on to director's report.
Good evening, Commissioners. Mr. Chair, since we met last, the Council authorized the Waterfront Department to execute an agreement with the California Division of Boating and Waterways, accepting a $70,000 grant for disposing of abandoned or surrendered recreational vessels per the state's Surrendered and Abandoned Vessel Exchange, or SAVE program. It's a very good program. We've been using it to great effect for years now, so we really appreciate that. And the Council also approved a 5-year lease agreement with the Santa Barbara Museum of Natural History Sea Center out on the wharf, just for some second-floor office space, a real small office space out on the wharf. Something that I've been involved with for several months now is this smoke-free outdoor public areas law. I just thought I'd bring the Commission up to speed with that. The City Council recently approved the ordinance amending the Santa Barbara Municipal Code prohibiting smoking in public places, including Stearns Wharf, which was our main interest in being involved in this, because we do have quite a few cigarette fires on the wharf in trash cans and also in the wooden deck boards. So we've sort of been waiting until the rest of the city caught up and prohibited on beaches, parks, and so forth, like many municipalities have done to the east and west of us. So the new ordinance prohibits it on beaches, parks, city parking lots, and most public areas, frankly. City staff from various departments, including myself, Parks and Recreation, Public Works, Police Department, and City Attorney's Office, were all involved. And we're in the process now of developing a comprehensive public outreach program to help the public understand the new smoking law and also reach out to visitors as well. That's going to be the harder part. Really, personal responsibility and voluntary compliance will be the way this is going to be enforced. You know, we're not going to have police officers and harbor patrol officers and so forth out patrolling streets and sidewalks telling people they can't smoke. But hopefully it'll bring about eventually sort of cultural change, if you will, where families and people will say, hey, you know, you're not really allowed to smoke on the beach here. My kids are downwind and whatnot. So, but we will also have signage. We're working on the signage program right now. We want to have a uniform signage program around the city. So we're working on what that would look like. And staff will be directed to educate and advise smokers of the smoke-free city law, but not to deviate from their assigned work tasks to do so. So they'll, if in the course of their work or coming or going from work, if the staff sees something going on, they should advise the person it's really not allowed anymore. So it'll take some time, but it's been in the works for a while. And I attached to your packet some frequently asked questions about the new smoking rules. And in terms of tentative agenda items for the November meeting, we were going to have a report from Dr. Christopher Lowe, Professor of Marine Biology and Director of the Shark Lab at Cal State University Long Beach, on population and predation trends among great white sharks along the Southern California coast. And I've seen his report before, and it's very interesting. So it should be real interesting. And then also we're going to dovetail that with protocols on posting shark advisories on the beaches and so forth. And actually, I believe Commissioner Spicer asked for it a month or two ago. So, and then hopefully we'll get a lease agreement with Santa Barbara Shellfish Company before you as well. And then we'll have the appeal of Paul Nouri for the non-renewal of his charter business activity permit which, if you will recall, that was the boating accident that hit Stearns Wharf on July 2nd or 3rd. And that should be at the November meeting as well. It's been put off a couple of months. The city attorney wasn't available this month, so we put it off to November. And that concludes my director's report, unless there are any questions.
Any questions or comments? I had one about signage. So will the signage on the wharf be consistent with the rest of the city, as you mentioned, or will it be something we're going to develop separately?
It should be consistent, and we'll have, right now we have ashtrays and things out there, so we're going to remove the ashtrays and put places to dispose of them and not sit there and use them as an ashtray, but you get rid of your cigarette in this device. And then we'll have the no smoking signs there. And it should be, uniform font and so forth, whatever's approved in the city. And there are going to be a lot of signs, particularly on State Street and so forth. So even though we're not required to take regulatory signs like this to the sign committee, the city administrator's office is going to take it to the sign committee just because there are so many of them. We can't blanket State Street with signs and not get the approval from the sign committee.
Yeah, and the beaches and parks and everything else. So.
Yes.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Brian?
Good evening, Commissioners. I have two brief items for you for this month's Business Services Report. The first is a summary of our tenant revenue examinations. The department has conducted revenue exams since 1995. And a revenue examination is not as detailed as an audit. It doesn't offer an opinion, but what it does do is it provides both us, the department, as well as the tenant, enough detail to ensure that the financial provisions of their lease are being met. Now, generally, we only do this for our percentage rent tenants, so primarily your restaurants and some of your other commercial entities. Our revenue exams we conduct on approximately 25 of our 65 tenants, so that shows you who's primarily on a percentage rent basis, and we do it at the rate of about 6 to 7 exams per fiscal year. And so it goes through in a cycle. So every third or fourth year, your time will be up, and we'll perform a revenue exam. And so what it'll do is for those 3 prior years. So really, everybody's having a revenue exam for every year that they're out, either on the wharf or in the harbor. They're conducted by Mitchell and Associates, and they have been working with us for about 3 years. And prior to that, it was done by Pine, Waltrip, Decker, and McCoy, who have conducted those revenue examinations for us since 1995. And Mitchell and Associates actually bought Pine, Waltrip, Decker, and McCoy, so there's a lot of consistency there. Familiar faces for both our tenants as well as the accountants who work at Mitchell and Associates. Now, at the end of the revenue examination, they put together a report for us, and it includes conclusions, which also they try to help out our tenants as well. A lot of our tenants are mom and pop places who are growing, which is great. That's what we want to see. And sometimes they're getting a little too big for them to do their own books anymore. So they offer suggestions as to how to make their accounting process better. And it also lets us know if additional rent from the tenant is due, or in some cases, they've overpaid and they get a credit back. These cost about $4,500 per revenue exam. So again, we do 6 to 7 per year. Over the past 2 years, the department has spent about just shy of $63,000 on revenue exams. And during that same time period, we've recovered just over $94,000 in past due rents. So a lot of what happens, it's just maybe a miscalculation on the tenant side or a misunderstanding as to how exactly they're required to show their rent to us. We haven't come across, at least recently, anything nefarious or trying to hide money. It's just been simple accounting errors that add up over time. So that is our tenant revenue examination process. And again, it's not an adversarial thing. We go out there and our tenants know the accountants, and we all work together to make this as easy as possible for everybody. a few meetings ago, a few of the commissioners had asked about the Cabrillo Bridge project that was recently completed this summer, and if it had any impact on gross sales out on the wharf. So what we did is we went back and we dug up some information, and just to set your dates and times, the project began in November of 2014, and the long-term lane closures on either side of Cabrillo and on State Street began in February of 2015. So those are important dates to keep in your mind. So what we did is we went back and we looked at annual revenue on a calendar year basis from 2013 through 2016. So here's what we came up with. On the left, you'll see the data for our wharf restaurants, and then on the right are all the other wharf entities, our commercial tenants, things like the Conway Deep Sea, wine tasting, Old Wharf Trading Company, things like that. So on the left, you'll see from 2013 to 2014, about a 6% jump in sales for wharf restaurants. 2015, again, when those lane closures started. Oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong one. You'll see pretty much even. I think it was about a $20,000 difference to the good in 2015 over 14. And then in 2016, it went down about 3%. Looking over at the commercial side of things, you'll see a constant growth pattern, which is really interesting compared to what the restaurants are doing. Grew 7% from 13 to 14, 14 to 15, another 2%, and then 15 to 16, another 3%. So on one side, you have the wharf restaurants going down 3% in 2016, but you're seeing a consistent climb in our commercial activity out on the wharf. Again, this is just looking at one piece of the puzzle. There was a lot of construction on Lower State Street, but at the same time, as we've mentioned in the past when we run our revenues past you folks, is that a whole lot goes into sales, especially out on the wharf. How's the weather? Is it a foggy summer? Is it a sunny summer? What day do certain holidays fall on? If July 4th falls on a Saturday, it's a boom. If it falls on a Wednesday, it's not as good as it would be on a Saturday. So all these things kind of go into the mix. So I'll let you figure out your own analysis on this one. But what we also did was look at our automobile and pedestrian counts. As you know, we keep track of these. And as far as our automobiles are concerned, you saw a big jump in 2013 to 2014, about 14,000 additional automobiles in just that 1 year. Then 2015 went down about 5% or 13,000, so you almost lost what you gained. And then in 2016, we saw another nice increase of 7% or 18,000 vehicles. So it's ironic that you've had these traffic restrictions on Cabrillo and State Street, yet we're seeing an increase in the automobiles. And then turning that over to the pedestrian side of things, we didn't have any data for 2013, or a full year's data, I should say. So 2014 was really the first time we could put together a whole calendar year. 2014 to 15, just about even, really small gain into 15. And then 2016, we saw a 5% decrease, which is equal to about 70,000 fewer people coming out on the Stearns Wharf. And that's a significant amount of people. Granted, on one day like July 4th, you can get a good 25 to 30,000 people out there in just one day. But still, that's frustrating to see that decline. Now, so far through, June 30th of this year, we've seen additional increase in automobile traffic of an additional 10,000 cars compared to last year through June. And then, but we still continue to see the slide on the pedestrian basis. It's down about 11.5% from last year at the same time. So we're hoping that as State Street is now open and those businesses start to kick in on Lower State Street, hopefully we'll see some synergy there and some back and forth, people venturing out onto the wharf and vice versa. So again, interesting numbers. Again, it could be very much a scientific study, but what we did is we looked at the basics and that's what we came up with. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Lang, go ahead.
Relative to the tenant audits, Do your tenants who have percentage rent clauses also give you copies of their state sales tax filings?
If they are, that's a great question. If they are asked to, they do. But generally, we don't get to that point. What our CPAs do is go through and take a period of time and do the daily Z tapes and go through every bit of financial data they possibly can to get an idea of what's going on. It's a very thorough process. Again, not as thorough as an audit, but I think that helps keep our tenants a bit less on edge. If it were an audit, I think they would not be so forthcoming. But we've got a great working relationship with them. It does take a lot of effort on their behalf, especially when you're going back 2, 3, 4 years. They've got to go dig out their information and put it all together. But they know they're going to get our fair shake, and if we owe them money, then they get a credit, and vice versa. These past 2 years have kind of been the exception. They were. Again, that $94,000 is a lot. Usually it's really even, $50 here, maybe $1,000 there. So we don't usually find those kind of discrepancies. So,
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Sly, if I may just add to that, basically what they do is they take the monthly sales reports that the tenants provide to us, and we give it to the auditing firm, and then they get the sales tax information from the tenant directly. We don't take that. Typically, they'll take the federal income tax as well, and then the monthly bank statements, and they just make sure, that they all are within reason. So if there's a lot more money going into the bank account than we're getting reported on our gross sales reports, then they do a little more digging. And then also, as Brian mentioned, they do spot checks. Well, they'll take a day here out of this month and a day here out of that month, and dig into the Z tapes from the cash registers and just do some sampling that way. So that's basically how it works.
Anything else? Is the 25 that we do the same 25, or does it rotate every couple of years, or how do you get on or off that list?
Commissioner Chair Sloan, it's the same 25. We just rotate through a cycle. So every 3 to 4 years, your time is up. And so
and I assume it's at some of our bigger tenants.
It is, yeah. We have some smaller tenants that are on percentage rent, and it really doesn't
Move the needle.
Yeah, it doesn't pay to have them go through this process and on such a small basis. But on the large ones, on occasion it does.
Yeah.
So
Good. Okay. All right. Anything else? Carl?
Good evening, Chair Sloan and Commissioners. The Marina One replacement project, Phase 8, is scheduled to begin, and it includes A, B, C, and D fingers. Bellingham Marine Industries will start off with B and C fingers on November 28. Those are the two smallest fingers. They have 25-foot slips, and they're not very big, with the goal being that they would complete the work before the holidays, and then move on to D finger right after the new year, followed up by A finger, with all construction completed by the middle or the end of February. Bellingham has become very efficient at this. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks per finger at the most. And I'd just like to make note that for every phase that we've done, we've been able to relocate all the boats whose docks are being replaced within Santa Barbara Harbor, and that's our intent this time as well. I think that's been quite a convenience to the slip holders. A little bit about the budget and the bid for this project. Since we are in the final phase, phase 5 through 8 was a single bid put together, and Bellingham Marine Industries submitted a bid of $7,193,000. We hadn't had very many change orders in the preceding phases, so we just came up with a 5% change order authority. It's typically about 10%. So that comes out to $359,000. And through phases 5, 6, and 7, we actually have a net credit on the change order due to the F finger extension. It was budgeted for 8 slips, and we reduced it to 4, something we discussed at the Commission a while back for navigation purposes. So the change order funds that are available it's about $396,000. It's actually gone up since we've started the project, which is kind of good. Another unique thing about this bid package is that we had an escalation line item in the bid form of $400,000. And that was done to provide some protection or assurance to the contractor to bid this project out for as little money as possible at the current rates when they bid it out, knowing that if construction or labor prices went up significantly, they could claim this escalation. It's based on a standard publication called the Engineering News Record and the CPI, and it's really for labor and materials. As most everybody knows, the consumer price index hasn't gone up very much in the last few years, so phases 6 through 7, the escalation that we paid is $97,000, and that's about 2.9% of what was bid. What's available is $302,000, and that's about 15.8% of what the Phase 8 bid is. So it's pretty unlikely that we'll have 15.8% inflation between now and the next several months. So that aspect of the project has come under bid considerably. And this is of note for a reason. We have some money left over in the bid to allow us to do some extra work that we think we need to do. Marina One expansion consists of Q, R, and S fingers, and those were added on to A through P fingers in 1998. There used to be a mooring field out there. They dredged it out and cleaned it up and put those docks in. And that vintage or design is different than what we have now in that all the utilities were contained within the docks themselves. And this is the electrical, the domestic water, and the fire water. And that has posed a significant problem. Access to all the utilities are through junction boxes. It's a little hard to orient yourself, but this is a concrete dock with a little opening in the middle, and all your electrical and water are in there. So if something goes wrong, this is where you have to replace it. You can't really see it in here, and if you look at the cursor, there's a valve right there, believe it or not. And this is the valve. So this valve split recently and started leaking, and it was impossible to repair. It couldn't be replaced. It couldn't be taken out without cutting out the concrete and everything else, which is something you don't want to do. Fortunately, staff had the foresight to go ahead and just slather a bunch of epoxy on there, and they got them to stop the leak, which was good, because this is Q finger and the restroom and everything else, and we were really stymied. We had no idea how to fix it. We have had similar problems. The fire water system, which is still in the same chase or in the same area, it failed several years ago, and we took it out and we put it on the outside of the docks. And it's a little bit hard to see, but this is the side of a dock. This is a standpipe to a fire hose cabinet, and this is a piece of fiberglass all-thread to a bracket and unistrut. And this kind of barnacle-y thing here is the actual fire water line. And that's pretty standard for how you build docks these days. And it's nice because you have access to it. You can tell if there's a leak, and you can get to it. And if there's a leak, you can fix it. So this was reinstalled outside the docks, similar to A through P fingers several years ago. We are really uncomfortable with the condition of the domestic water system on Q through S fingers. So we requested a quote from Bellingham Marine Industries, and they gave us a quote of $94,000. Put the domestic water system on the outside of the docks, exactly the same as the fire water system, and you can connect up to the same bracketing system and everything else. So it's I think, going to be a nice improvement to improve reliability. As I mentioned earlier, we have change order funds on the order of $396,000, so it'd be pretty easy to absorb this $94,000 cost. And the idea is that as soon as they finish with A finger, which is the final part, they'd move right onto the water line, unless they want to come in a little bit early and start on the water line. So this is something we want to advance and move forward with, because the next time that it fails out there, will be no water with no real solution in sight to repair it. This is the final phase of the Marina One replacement project. We started back in 2009 with the replacement of the main walk, and did one phase every year with a 1-year break to increase or improve or redo the design for phases 5 through 8. The bid for Phase 8 is $1,900,000, and that includes change order, authority, and escalation. As I think most of you know, this has been paid for with a loan from the Division of Boating and Waterways, $14.5 million, and to date we've been reimbursed $11,055,000. We've also mentioned to the Commission in several budget hearings that we may or may not need to seek reimbursement for Phase 8. The goal would be that we do not do that and keep the debt down and the debt service down. Our annual debt service after Phase 7 will be about $892,000 a year, and that's at 20 years at 4.5%. The original loan was 30 years, but we've negotiated with Division of Boating Waterways to reduce that So we'll save several $1 million in the overall cost of this project. But it's kind of exciting to be done. It's been a long time in the making, and we've worked hard on it for a long time, and we're ready for February to roll around and be finished and move on to the next big project. That concludes my report this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
First, congratulations on coming in on time and under budget. That's a great thing. I'm sure it's a great feeling for you. My question is, could you kind of illuminate the details of how one gets relocated if you're slip holder and how that works?
Chair Sloan, Commissioner McCray, our staff up front uses any available slips that we have. We have 30 slips, transient slips that are available, required to be available per the Muni Code. And we also have a situation called temporary cancellation, so if someone's hauled out for a long time or cruising to Mexico, and all those slips are available to us. And fortunately, we've been able to relocate everybody into either one of those types of vacant slips. Frequently, there's no room at the inn when we do this, and so it impacts visitors. This phase will be a little bit easier because the boats are a little bit smaller and the docks are a little shorter. But it's worked well, and you know, our goal is to make sure that the slip holders are inconvenienced as little as possible, and it's worked out quite well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? All right, let's move along. Mick?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So I'm happy to report tonight for the first time in quite some time we have a full complement of Harbor Patrol officers, that's 10, thanks in large part to the fact that we just hired 2 new officers whom I want to introduce you to this evening. They're not here physically, but we can virtually channel them, and you'll see them on the docks, no doubt. The first is Nathan Aldridge. He joined the department in August. Nathan had a decade of experience as a local educator, as well as working as a deckhand with Island Packers, and he had several years with Harbor Patrol crew. This is sometimes one of the best recruiting avenues for new Harbor Patrol officers. They learn they cut their teeth, if you will, as Harbor Patrol crew and end up percolating up and becoming Harbor Patrol officers. Quite a stellar individual Nathan is. He was an NC2A champion water polo player at Stanford, and he played professional water polo in Germany. He speaks German, French, Spanish, and Italian, so hopefully we have most of our visitors covered for interactions in the harbor, and especially in the summertime. He holds a Coast Guard operator's license and, of course, an EMT certification. He's always had a deep love and respect for the ocean. Interesting story, during Nathan's first week in uniform, while towing a 45-foot commercial boat, commercial fishing boat, the individual said to him, can you tow a boat this big? And Nathan politely told the individual, sir, you can step off onto the dock now. And so he's a skilled individual. He's a warm man, and along with the next individual, I would encourage you to say hi to him when you see Nathan on the docks or in the boats and what have you. And I think he's going to be a valuable addition to our patrol staff for many years moving forward. Same goes for Thomas O'Neill. He was hired a month later after Nathan in September. He has an extensive maritime background, having previously worked as a captain for Island Packers and Explorer dive boats, SoCal Ship Services, and Hook's Landing in Ventura, passenger carrying boats there. He sailed competitively, taught sailing classes. He enjoys all things ocean. He enjoys surfing, body surfing, swimming, and paddleboarding, as well as scuba and free diving, a waterman to the max, if you will. And clearly, we can depend on him for water and boat rescues and of the like. He looks forward to providing safety and security services to the boaters, tenants, and waterfront users. So again, if you don't see these gentlemen on the dock, they're liable to contact you and introduce themselves. But if you do see them, please tell them hi, introduce yourselves. They're very much interested in getting to learn all of our personalities and folks in the waterfront district. And again, we're very, very happy that we have a full complement of staff again. and these two folks are going to be great additions. And speaking of Harbor Patrol, I wanted to talk to you briefly about a program we call Harbor Watch. It began in the 1990s, was established as a model. It was modeled after the neighborhood watches we see in our local communities, which are, basically the eyes and ears efforts to spot and report crime. But it has sort of morphed since then into a general information exchange between Harbor Patrol and our harbor users, slip permittees, boaters, and what have you. And also we follow it up as much as we can with hands-on training, guest speakers, and what have you. They're held in the evening, and we've now finally formalized when they are. We're going to do the first Wednesday, and I think it's the third Tuesday in the first Wednesday in November, the second Wednesday in November, and the Tuesday before Memorial Day in May, which coincides with National Safe Boating Week. So I think the intention with our upcoming Harbor Watch meeting is to get the fire department to provide some fire extinguisher training and some training on how to use fire dock boxes on the fingers, because a lot of folks think, yes, you have to break the glass and what have you, but a lot of folks think once you reach in and unlatch them and open the door, that you can pull part of the hose out off the hose sits on a straight rod like that. You can pull half the hose off and use it. And I only learned several years ago through one of these demonstrations, well, till the hose is completely faked out, as they say, it won't go through a kinked hose, that's looped on a rod like that. So there's little things like that in an emergency that could really pay off in case of a boat or a dock fire. So again, our next Harbor Watch meeting is on Wednesday the 8th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the Marine Center classroom. That's at 125 Harbor Way. And if anybody has any questions about that program or that meeting, they can certainly call Harbor Patrol at 564-5531. And finally, with our barely catching our breath from the Harbor Festival, we're looking forward to the Parade of Lights in November. It's our 32nd annual, if you can believe that, Parade of Lights. And this year's theme is Hollywood Holidays. We expect some great decorations to that theme. And typical deal, we'll have a Santa's Village in the afternoon where Santa Claus will entertain. Last year we had 500 kids line up to see Santa Claus. It was awesome. They went all the way down the pier and all the way south past West Marine and really past the steps of our leading to our offices. So we've got goodie bags for at least 400 children. So we'll have 10 tons of snow. We'll have Santa Claus. We'll have Mrs. Claus. And we'll have K-Light coming down to play music. And then the parade, of course, starts at about 5:30. And we've got registration forms out at our office and at the fuel dock and at Harbor Market as I speak. We put those out today. So we encourage folks to sign up, call our office if you have any questions. And again, we're looking forward to a wonderful night with beautiful calm seas on December 10th. I forgot to mention the date, but it's right here. On December 10th, 2017, Hollywood Holidays. Sign up, folks. We look forward to having a great parade. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Question? Go ahead.
Yes, is there any cost associated? Do you charge anything for a boat to enter into the parade?
Commissioner McCray, no. Free. In fact, it's a great question because not only free, there's a great, really robust prize package for boats who win in the individual categories: commercial fishing, commercial other, human-powered, sail, so, if you win in one of these categories, and I'll tell you, sometimes there aren't a lot of entrants, like in the commercial fishing category. Dropped a major hint to our commercial fishing community. Sometimes there's only one or two entrants, and they're not stupid. They know there's a big prize package at the end of that. So if you take first or second place with two people entering, I think that's a lock, right? So we'd love to see about 30 boats, 30 plus if we could. Last year we had 30, but I hope that answers your question. No cost and a lot of prizes at the end.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you. I just can't let you go, Mick, without asking about the Harbor Festival. I
I'll-
know you'll have a report, but
Commissioner Sloan, yes, I will have a report next month. It wasn't in time for this packet. It was a rocking affair. I think anybody who was down there knows it was overwhelmingly good. I was working in I was working in a lot of different places, but I was in the Albacore booth working with my wife, pushing Albacore plates out the window, and this was 3:30 in the afternoon, and the line was all the way out to close to the foot of the travel lift pier. So, and then I'm told from people working different venues, the vendors had a great day. I don't want to, this is a spoiler alert, but
Right.
it was a great event. And I also wanted to go back, if I might, Mr. Chair, and mention that, as usual, we're going to have a Rockin' Awards party at the end of the Parade of Lights at the Maritime Museum. It's a great venue for that, and we thank the museum for providing the venue. And the boaters love it. They just hop off their boats and walk up to the museum. So,
great.
sure.
All right, and congratulations on having the new two new patrolmen on board.
Thanks very much.
So, show them.
Mick, I had a quick question. What are the prizes for the different categories or the dollar amounts?
The prizes are I believe there are 5 categories, and I'm going to look in my staff report to see if I see them, or else go off my memory. It's sail, power, commercial fishing, commercial other,
And human power.
and human power. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right, anything else? Okay. Commission staff communications, do you have anything, Scott?
Mr. Chair, nothing from staff this evening.
Okay, anything from the commission? All right, well, thank you guys for great reports today. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Move to adjourn. Second. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, thanks.